Hello again. Now we'll talk about the other brain system that is important for reading, namely the visual system. The eyes send visual information to a subcortical area, which connects to this cortical area at the back of the brain, called V1. On our favorite diagram of the brain, V1 is here. A large portion of the cortex analyzes this visual information to recognize and interact with things in the world. So the pathway from the eyes to V1 is just the beginning of the visual system, and most visual processing occurs within the cortex itself. We will focus on two major systems within the visual system, and we'll start with the one for object recognition. An object is any individual thing, such as a person, a lion, a sofa, a pan, or a screw. First, we will summarize the function of areas that recognize objects by their shape, and then look at an example. The information that reaches V1 is sort of like pixels. V1 and the next areas convert the pixels into segments of edges and corners. This next region is tuned to parts of objects. This region on the underside of the brain recognizes an arrangement of object parts as a whole object. It connects into the semantic and lexical systems. Now we'll go through an example of the visual processing of a pan. In the edges region, neurons tuned to portions of the pan's contours are activated. In the parts region, these edges activate neurons tuned to a handle shape and neurons tuned to a saucer leg shape. In the object region, these object parts activate neurons tuned to the shape of a pan. The pan shape activates the semantics related to a pan and the word pan. Note that both of these objects are exactly the same pan, and that a lion can eat you whether it comes from the right or from the left. Therefore, the object recognition system treats an object and its mirror reflection as the same thing, which is called mirror invariance. In the previous videos, we've looked at a cortical area that represents parts of faces. The face part area is within the object part area. The face part area connects to a face area, which is within the object area. We've discussed recognition of objects by their shape. A different pathway within the object recognition system analyzes an object's surface, such as its color, pattern, and texture. For example, let's consider recognition of this object. The shape pathway recognizes the form of a dog, while the surface pathway represents that the object is white with black spots. This combination allows recognition of the object as a Dalmatian. Now we'll take a look at the second important system, the visual attention system. Visual attention acts like a spotlight to prioritize some portion of the visual input. We also control the visual input by moving the eyes and then keeping them steady. The period of holding the eyes steady is called the fixation, and looking directly at something is called fixating it. Usually we focus our visual attention on what we are fixating. For example, if I ask, who is at the bottom right of this picture, you would fixate here and focus your attention here to determine that it's Kermit's darling nephew, Robin. We can consciously control the width of the attentional spotlight. For example, you can fixate the red character and broaden your attention to recognize the overall shape as an H, or narrow your attention to recognize the red character as a B. Visual attention is even more flexible. We can fixate one thing, but focus our attention on another thing. For example, you can fixate the black cross, but pay attention to the object on the left without moving your eyes. Now we'll look at the visual attention system in the brain. This area controls the location and width of visual attention. The visual attention signal passes through this brain region and then influences low-level visual areas. As a result, in high-level visual areas, only the representation of the attended object is strongly activated. So, for example, if you fixate the black cross, but focus your attention on the left object, Neurons tuned to the edges of the heart will be more active than neurons tuned to the edges of the cross or star. This effect is magnified in higher level areas. So in the part and object areas, mostly only neurons tuned to the heart shape are active. This concludes our discussion of the visual system. Finally, we'll briefly look at the executive system. Like an executive in a company, the executive system is in charge of identifying and accomplishing goals. The executive system is located in the front of the brain here. In the next video, we'll be talking about processing that is conscious versus automatic. While we don't really understand consciousness, it is usually associated with activity in the executive system. Automatic processing is associated with activity that is limited to posterior sensory cortical areas. To summarize, the take-home message of this segment is that visual object recognition occurs along this pathway, while fixation and visual attention determine what is represented in the object area. This concludes our discussion of the pre-reading function of cortical areas. In the next video, we will examine how learning to read changes the function of many of these areas.